All right, so there's also another way to look at this. If you look at the entire year, so here we go. So remember, when you think about the Earth moving, right? So this is us moving from June 1st to August 1st. Notice, of course, you know, from the perspective of the Earth, the sun is in, at this month, the sun on June 1st, the sun would be in the constellation Taurus, and then, as time, on July, I mean, it's not showing you this, but on July 1st, roughly July 1st, it's not exactly the same. It's each month is not exactly the same amount of time, as you know, but roughly July 1st, the sun is going to be in the constellation Taurus. I'm sorry. It's moved from Taurus to Gemini. So you wouldn't be able to see Gemini on the month of um, the month of July, and then in August, it's the sun has now moved into the constellation Cancer, and you can see Cancer. Or, I'm sorry, you can't see Cancer on for the month of August, and you can see Leo right on the horizon, right, just as the sun sets, right. So it's just as the sun sets, Leo would be right on the horizon. By the way, the constellations, when you look at them on the horizon, they don't look like they get kind of distorted. Um, I mean, the stars are still in the same places, but because it's close to the horizon, it just kind of looks weird. Just to let you know, um, the normal drawing that we have of the constellations is the way they would look, kind of if when the constellation is directly towards the south. If you're in the northern hemisphere. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, I'm always referring to the northern hemisphere. Um, but that's like, when Gemini is high in the sky, it looks like this. When Taurus, well, you can't see it very well right here, but Taurus, which it's a bull, and there's a really bright star that's the eye of the bull. It's called Aldebaran, and so forth. But at any rate, so you can see as the Earth moves around the sun, you're seeing different constellations, right? You're seeing the sun in well, you don't see that constellation when the sun is in it, but you can see all the other constellations, right? So you can see most of the night sky, in a given night. But most, a lot of people are not going to stay up, the way an astronomer stays up like all night long, right? I mean, a lot of astronomers, I should say, don't stay up all night long anyway. A lot of this stuff is all computer driven. Telescopes and so forth are for the most part computer controlled, just like most of the other things in our lives these days. So you don't have to stay up all night. But 100 years ago, for example, you had to, if you were going to take pictures of the night sky, you had to manually move the telescope as the night sky shifted, right? As the Earth rotated on its axis and the night sky shifted, you had to actually move the telescope to keep up with the stars. Again, nowadays that's all computer driven, but not, to the ancients it wasn't, right. They watched the night sky. They the people, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago, really knew the night sky very, very well, especially travelers. If you traveled by sea or even by land, um, you knew the night sky. Uh, you used the night sky for navigation purposes. I mean, they didn't have Google Maps or anything like that. Um, all right, so that's what happens, and of course, let me mention one thing, because it's like one of my favorite things to talk about. Notice, like in this picture right here, there are the traditional 12 constellations of the zodiac. But between Scorpio and Sagittarius right here, there's actually another constellation that dips across this line. The line, they I don't think we've talked about it yet. This PowerPoint presentation is about to talk about it. This line is called there it is right there. It's called the ecliptic, right? The path of the sun in the sky is called the ecliptic. And the ecliptic, of course, passes through all of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Right? That's why they are the constellations of the zodiac. Notice it doesn't pass through the entire constellation. It just generally passes through part of the constellation, right? Like there's Capricorn. It's only passing through this part of Capricorn. It's only passing through this part of Sagittarius. But also, okay, so this is the part I was going to mention. There is a constellation right about here called Ophiuchus. I think it's like the water bear or something like that. I don't know the mythology of all this stuff, but so Ophiuchus is actually the ecliptic actually passes through Ophiuchus, and so there are actually technically 13 constellations of the zodiac. The one thing that's different about Ophiuchus, like for each of these original 12, it takes roughly a month, right? Roughly, you got to give her plus or minus, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. But it takes roughly a month for the sun to pass through these constellations. For Ophiuchus, it's only like a week or so that the sun is in Ophiuchus. All right. Yeah, should I talk about that? Yeah, I might as well. Okay, because I would mention this automatically in my face-to-face lectures. All right. So with that in mind, Ophiuchus, right, being the 13th constellation of the zodiac, there are, this is very unfortunate. There are holdovers from ancient times where astronomy and astrology, right? Astrology is this mythical thing that tries to predict your future based on where the sun was on the day of your birth, right? So that's a bunch of nonsense. I want everybody to understand that. It's a bunch of crazy nonsense. It's just humans trying to take advantage of other humans. That's what it's been a con game for thousands of years. But it's what we call a pseudoscience. It sounds scientific because it has to do with where the sun is in these different constellations. Let me explain something. Okay, so all right, the Earth, this wonderful planet that we are on. Remember how I talked about the northern star, right? The celestial North Pole points to the northern star, the pole star, which is also known as Polaris. That is true for a certain amount of time. It turns out that the Earth is like a big giant top, a spinning top. Like if you imagine spinning a top on a desk or something like that, as the top slows down, and the Earth is, believe it or not, slowing down very slightly, but it is slowing down. It causes, just like a top on a desk would begin to wobble as it slows down, the Earth undergoes a wobble. Now, it's a really slow wobble. Let me explain that. It's an extremely slow wobble. One of those wobbles, and we'll get to this shortly, is this wobble is called precession. And because of precession, where the sun is, it varies. All right. So, for example, all right, let me use an example here. During the time of the Greeks, right? So you're going back more than 2,000 years ago. The first day of spring, right, which is roughly March 21st. It varies slightly because the year is not exactly 365 days. But anyhow, on the first day of spring, the sun was in the constellation Aries. All right. And it's still known. We still talk about the first point in Aries. All right, so that's just kind of a leftover. All right, fast forward more than 2,000 years, the sun is actually in the constellation Pisces. Right, right now, when you go out on March 21st every single year. Certainly in your lifetimes, the sun is in Pisces, so it's creeping in this direction, right? It was in Aries. It took you know a, you know more than 1,000 years to reach Pisces. In It's actually going to go into Aquarius. I think it's about 700 years from now, because the sun has gone through a good portion of Pisces. And so on the first day of spring will actually be when the sun is in Aquarius. And then, again, a little bit of some time will go by, and it just keeps going all the way. It just keeps going and going and going. But that cycle, so the time it'll take for when the sun is again in Aries, takes 26,000 years. All right, so that's what precession is. And so because of precession, when you look up your zodiac sign, all right, as people do, they'll look up their zodiac sign. They'll think that they're an Aries, but they're really a Pisces, right? Because or they'll think that they're a Taurus and they're really an Aries, because where the sun is has shifted, right? So yeah, so it is shifting in this direction, all right. So in fact, and there are even people who are Ophiuchans, but astrology doesn't even recognize that. I don't know. I don't know why. Well, I know why, because it's a bunch of nonsense. But this whole thing about predicting what your life is going to be like because of where the sun is in the sky on the day of your birth, that has nothing to do with who you're going to be in life, right? It has absolutely nothing. That would mean, for example, all twins are going to be, twins born on the exact same day are going to be completely identical in life. They're gonna grow up. They're going to have exactly the same job, and I mean it's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, so enough of that. Let me move on. All right, so this is this thing called the ecliptic. I mentioned this before. This is the path of the sun in the sky. That's the ecliptic, and the ecliptic passes through all the constellations of the zodiac, including this one that's not listed here. It's between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's called Ophiuchus. I mean, only part of Ophiuchus passes through that, but that is part of the ecliptic. And by the way, all the planets pass through. That they follow pretty close, not perfectly. That some of them are a little above, some of them are a little below, but they're really close to the ecliptic. Like, for example, you'll never look up into the night sky in the direction of the North Star, which is in the constellation Ursa Minor. You never see planets there. Okay, the planets are always really close to these to the ecliptic, and therefore they're always in these 12 constellations. Well, 13 if you include Ophiuchus, of course, and sometimes they are in Ophiuchus. All right, so but when we do the projects, there's some projects that are involved where you're going to use some software, and you'll see that that sometimes the planets are found in Ophiuchus. All right, so that's it for this video.